Welcome to the King's Report News Hour for Monday, the 21st day in the 5th month, 16th year of Changi. Tim and Holzer singing for the Second King of Changi, Hyung Jae-moon. Let's go right to the places around the kingdom where the flag's been planted. Right now in Chungcheong, Tennessee, we have 67 degrees and mostly sunny skies. Getting up to 79 today, cloudy and humid with a couple of showers and a thunderstorm mainly later tonight. 66 for a low, a couple of thunderstorms this evening, otherwise mostly cloudy and humid. And in father's hometown of Cheongju, North Korea, no, let's not say Korea, North Korea, just Korea, Cheongju, Korea, in Pyongan, North Pyongan province, 75 degrees and sunny right now. And a passing evening shower too, otherwise mostly cloudy, a low of 61 tonight. Tomorrow getting up to 79, humid with intervals of clouds and sunshine. Cheonryung Palace in Northeast Pennsylvania in the USA, 58 degrees, mostly cloudy right now. 70 for a high today, cloudy with spotty drizzle, remaining cool for mid-June. 62 for a low tonight, mostly cloudy with areas of drizzle. And then in Liberty Rock RV Park and Campground in Limestone County, Texas, 68 and clear right now, getting up to 91 today. Partly sunny and humid, a thunderstorm in one or two spots this afternoon. Tonight, mainly clear early, then areas of low clouds forming and humid, 73 for low. Suncheon Palace in Korea, 74 degrees and clear, partly cloudy with a shower in places late, low of 65 tonight. Tomorrow, 85 for a high, clouds followed by brightening sky and humid. At the Gunma Palaces in Japan, 85 degrees, mostly cloudy right now, clear to partly cloudy, uncomfortably humid tonight, 72 degrees for a low, 96 tomorrow in Maebashi at the Gunma Palaces, 96 tomorrow, sunny to partly cloudy, hot and humid, a thunderstorm in the afternoon, danger of dehydration and heat stroke if outside for extended periods of time. And then at Ilan, I don't think that place has a name yet. Anyway, Ilan, Taiwan, cloudy and 77 right now. Getting, wait, I have to refresh this. Cloudy and 77, low tonight will be 77, mostly cloudy with a thunderstorm. And then tomorrow, high of 85, cloudy periods of rain in the morning, followed by a thunderstorm in the afternoon. Yes, okay. All right, so that's that. Let's go to Father's Word. And today we are in the life of true filial piety. He's speaking here October 10th, 1965. Okay. The number of Christians is not an issue. What's needed is people who will be God's body and people who are determined to obey and follow God's order at any time. People to whom God can say with joy, just wait for my order. So today, among the hundreds of millions of Christian believers, is there anyone who is like that? If someone holds a knife to a person's sort of side, and says, we're going to offer you as a sacrifice on the altar of heaven. So are you willing to offer your life? If that person is not able to go over that situation, then he is nothing. Okay. Praise God. Yes. Praise God for the words that he's given us today. Okay. Bunch of things happened during the weekend. Well, we were praying that the protests around the country would uh, be done without serious violence, without people getting killed. Unfortunately, two people were killed in Minnesota, politician and her husband. Two others were also shot and wounded seriously, but looks like, I guess, they're going to survive. Um, and unfortunately, the person who is alleged to have done the shooting has been captured by police just in the last several hours. Uh, Now, the person who was captured is connected to the Democrat governor, Tim Walz, and so I don't see anybody trying to say that this was a Republican killing a Democrat or anything like that. But this is another incident in the atmosphere of political violence that has been brewing. And I would say that it's been brewing for many years. That people who are not able to win their arguments by words, Democrats, have been fomenting an atmosphere of violence for a long time. And we saw that last July. This culminated in the attempted assassination of President Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania, and then again, a second assassination attempt a couple months later. And this one, unfortunately, that happened during the weekend. Unfortunately, it actually took the life of two people. And so again, we see people say, "Oh no, the rhetoric has to, be calmed down," something like that. But that happened after the Butler situation as well. But they brought down the rhetoric for maybe an hour, maybe two, but then they were right back up there, and I'm afraid that uh, the atmosphere of violence is going to continue to escalate because there are people who are intentionally escalating it. And I'm not referring to President Trump here. I'm referring to people who are trying to bring about social disturbance in America and trying to maximize social disturbance in America so as to tear down American institutions and put something else in their place. And I'm not sure what that is, but it's certainly not going to be a democracy, that's for sure. The sort of what they call the No Kings demonstrations were held across the country, and some people have been pointing out, wait a second, how come there were no Kings demonstrations when they were locking us up, when they were telling us don't leave your home, you have to put on masks, and you're going to be fined if you have your business open, and all this kind of stuff. That would have been a time for No Kings demonstrations, right? Not now, but now because it's a Democrat opposing the Republicans, that they want to say that, okay, well, no kings, but they liked Biden. You can see they really liked Biden. Why? Because he was not a king. In other words, he was weak. And they don't like President Trump because he is showing strength. And so these people will look at someone who has strength, who is governing with strength, and say, "Oh, look, Hitler." Well, what happened with Hitler, by the way? No more Hitler. Now it's a king. I guess I don't know. Maybe I don't know what happened to Hitler. That would be an interesting sociological study, perhaps. Somewhere Hitler lost favor with these folks. And it's the same people, It's just that they've substituted the word king for Hitler. How, I don't know. It's interesting. Perhaps they realize that all that talk about Hitler has given rise or helped give rise to the anti-Semitism that is going on around the country. And perhaps they decided to maybe pull back from that particular expression for strategic reasons and then to substitute the word Hitler instead. There's been a lot of speculation, and more than just speculation, about the ties of the involvement of the Chinese Communist Party with these demonstrations. And congressional leaders now are calling for investigations into the groups with ties to the Chinese Communist Party. Members of Congress have called for investigations into alleged allegations that far-left groups with ties to the CCP were linked to the organization of riots against immigration and customs enforcement operations and the nationwide protests against the removal of illegal immigrants. Earlier this month, anti-ICE protests in Los Angeles devolved into riots as violent protesters clashed with ICE agents and a few other law enforcement, leading to President Trump deploying the California National Guard and active Marines to the streets of the city. On June 14th, that would be Saturday, the LAPD once again issued dispersal orders in Los Angeles after the anti-Trump No Kings protests became violent, with rocks and bricks reportedly being thrown at law enforcement. In Portland, Oregon, the Portland Police Bureau declared a riot as No Kings protesters clashed with federal officers outside an ICE facility. Multiple officers were reportedly injured. The FBI also arrested and charged individuals, including a man who allegedly distributed face shields designed to protect from chemical splashes and flying debris. Photos of the anti-ICE riots in LA showed rioters displaying numerous foreign flags as well as communist flags. At one of the riots, the communist flag of the Soviet Union was seen. That's happened before, hasn't it? I think in the Antifa riots, was it? Also, the Soviet Union flag was displayed. And it's kind of interesting. I mean, why? Soviet Union is a defunct empire. Yet, so what is the meaning? I'd like to interview that person who was displaying the flag of the Soviet Union. Does he know what it is? Maybe he just thinks it's maybe the Communist Party flag. I don't know. But there's a distinct difference between the two. On Friday, House Republicans launched an investigation into Neville Roy Singham, an American businessman, I think he's actually a billionaire, living in China, living in Shanghai, I believe, who allegedly funds protest groups in the United States, including those involved in far-left Hamas organizations and the anti-ICE riots in LA. So it's not just Soros. Soros has got competition. And the Representative Anna Paulina Luna announced on X on June 10th that the House Oversight Committee will be calling Singham to testify regarding the funding of a communist group tied to both the Los Angeles riots and the CCP. Be interesting to see if he shows up, because he may be overseas. Anyway, he has enough money to be able to avoid U.S. law enforcement, I think. In a letter to Singham, the House Oversight Committee alleged that he funded the Party for Socialism and Liberation, PSL, a Marxist political organization that has fielded presidential candidates since 2008. In a separate letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi, the committee accused the group of being involved in the Los Angeles riots and requested the DOJ to investigate the group's ties for potential violations of FARA, that would be the Foreign Agent Registration Act, or incitements of violence. PSL is also affiliated with the People's Forum, a New York City-based nonprofit known for promoting radical leftist activism and hosting Marxist thinkers. In 2020, is that a contradiction? Marxist thinker? I think anybody who thinks is not going to be Marxist, but I don't know. In 2021, the People's Forum described Singham as a Marxist comrade who sold his company and donated most of his wealth to nonprofits that focus on political education, culture, and internationalism. Okay, what they mean by internationalism is a communist revolution not happening in just one country at a time, but rather sort of this is what I think, this is how I understand anyway, but rather internationally, globally at once. This is the Mexican flag, I believe, but let's see the Soviet flag. On April 16th, Senator Chuck Grassley sent a letter to Attorney General Pam Bondi and FBI Director Kash Patel asking if the People's Forum should be required to register under the Foreign Agents Registration Act due to its connection to China-based Singham and the CCP. The letter states that Singham works closely with the Chinese government media machine and is financing its propaganda worldwide. Grassley called on the Department of Justice to determine whether the People's Forum and its agents are attempting to influence U.S. policy. Singham and the Party for Socialism and Liberation did not respond to an earlier request for comment. And then also on June 13th, the Daily Caller published an expose on the Asian Americans for Progressive America's promotion, so AAPA, of anti-ICE protests during the Flag Day weekend. AAPA's president, Elaine Heng, also serves as the executive member for United Chinese Americans, a DC-based nonprofit that received U.S. government funding for a mental health program for Chinese Americans. Peng has regularly cited racism as the reason for holding protests against U.S. immigration enforcement and public policy. Her campaigns have been frequently promoted by China Daily, an English-language daily newspaper owned by the CCP's Central Propaganda Department. According to the Daily Caller, 6 UCA board members previously held positions in the CCP's United Front Work Department, which seeks to influence politicians around the world. The publication also said it found that 2 members of the UCA's founding honorary advisory board are openly CCP members who served in the intelligence arms of the CCP's People's Liberation Army and the Ministry of State Security. Okay, so it looks like there's considerable evidence that the CCP or people connected to the CCP are involved in these demonstrations. Of course, let's not make Soros feel like he's being ignored. I'm sure that he is also involved as well. But this is Epoch Times that I've just been citing, and so they're focusing on the China aspect of this. Yeah. Interesting that George Soros's son picked this particular weekend to get married to Hillary Clinton's former aide and a woman who is sometimes sort of informally known as Hillary Clinton's second daughter, Huma Abedin. So, and they were all the the bigwigs of the Democrat side were all sort of gathering in the Hamptons and sipping, I don't know, whatever it is that they sip there, and while their minions were around and were demonstrating around the country. Okay. So we'll see how these investigations play out, but it's pretty obvious that the CCP is involved in this, and also this guy, this American businessman who it says China-based. I think I read elsewhere that he is actually Shanghai-based. How his role is going to be exposed through these investigations, that's something worth watching, I think. Yeah. Let's see here then. So that's the demonstrations, and we'll see how they try to continue. They want to continue to build the momentum through the summer, July and August, and we'll see how that works out. But please, 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 as I've been saying, stay away from these demonstrations. You can watch them on television if you want. don't get near them. All right. There was one incident where an innocent bystander was killed because someone else was holding a rifle, and so law enforcement tried to shoot the guy who was holding the rifle, but they killed an innocent bystander instead. So please don't be victimized like that. We read today's word about offering our lives, but that's not the way to do it. It's definitely not the way to do it. And there will be a time when we may be required to offer up our lives, but getting involved in these demonstrations is definitely not the way to do it. So please stay away from large crowds, any large crowds. I would, recommend don't go to baseball games, don't go to, well, football has not yet begun, but just even county fairs and stuff like that. I think right now we're living through a dangerous time, and so we need to act with wisdom, and so that we don't become victims to this craziness. And it's going to get worse. It'll get worse as time goes on, unfortunately. All right. Meanwhile, the war between Israel and Iran continues, and it continues to escalate. And even Pakistan, very unhelpfully, says that, hey, you know what? At least this is a report. I'm not just but it's a fairly solid report. And Pakistan says that they will attack Israel with a nuclear weapon if Israel attacks Iran first with a nuclear weapon. But those kinds of comments are not helpful. Let's see here. Pakistan tells Iran they may nuke Israel. Okay. Last night, and I don't know who he is. Okay, here we go. Okay. Pakistan and Israel are two of the 9 countries that currently possess nuclear weapons, according to experts. And Razi, I think, okay, here we go. This is the actual beginning. Okay. Pakistan has threatened to drop a nuclear warhead on Israel if Benjamin Netanyahu uses nuclear weapons against Iran, according to a top Iranian officer, General Mohsen Razi, a senior officer in the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and a member of Iran's National Security Council, said in an interview, Pakistan has assured us that if Israel uses a nuclear bomb on Iran, they will attack Israel with a nuclear bomb. So this is the Iranian side talking. So obviously, he is trying to tell Israel, don't attack us with a nuclear bomb, because Pakistan has said this, that they will get back at you. They will retaliate with a nuclear weapon if you attack us with a nuclear weapon. So he's trying to keep Israel from doing that. But right now, Israel is not the one who is closer to using a nuclear weapon, because nuclear weapons are used would be used as a last resort. They have not been used in war since 1945. But if either Israel or Pakistan is going to use a nuclear weapon, it would be Pakistan first, because they would want to preserve the sort of Islamic regime in Iran. Perhaps that would be the purpose. But Israel, they're doing quite nicely without using a nuclear weapon. I think the idea that Israel may attack Iran first with a nuclear weapon is misplaced. Anyway, and then Pakistan and Israel, 2 of the 9 countries that currently possess nuclear weapons, according to experts. Razi claims that Pakistan has vowed to stand behind Iran and called on the Islamic world to unite against Israel. Today, Pakistan's defense minister denied Razi's claims, reportedly saying Pakistan is signatory to all international nuclear disciplines. Our nuclear capability is for our people's benefit and defense against hostile designs. Interesting statement to make. If that would be what who's this talking about? Defense minister. So that would be, well, diplomatically, this is something that he will be required to say. If he said, yeah, he's right. Yeah, we told him that's exactly what we'll do. Then they would come under a lot of criticism from around the world. So even if it were true, even if the Iranian statement is true, Pakistan would still be required to deny it just for diplomatic purposes. Last night, he noted that the world appears to be teetering on the edge of a conflict as a result of escalating attacks in the Middle East. The Western world must worry about conflicts generated by Israel. It will engulf the whole region and beyond. The patronage of Israel, a rogue state, can have catastrophic consequences. Mail Online has contacted Pakistan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs for comment. After decades of enmity and proxy wars, Israel's assault on Iran last week has touched off the most intense fighting yet and triggered fears of a lengthy conflict that could engulf the entire Middle East. Trump has urged the foes to make a deal, but told reporters Sunday that sometimes they have to fight it out first. This morning, Iran fired a new salvo of missiles at Israel, triggering air raid sirens across the country as emergency services reported that 5 people had died and dozens more were wounded in Israel on the 4th day of escalating violence. The attacks came in retaliation for Israel's sweeping attacks on its military and nuclear infrastructure, which have killed at least 224 people in the country since Friday. The attacks raised Israel's death toll to at least 19, and in response, the Israeli military said fighter jets had struck 10 command centers in Tehran, belonging to Iran's Quds Force, an elite arm of its Revolutionary Guard that conducts military and intelligence operations outside Iran. Okay, and then authorities in the central city of Petah Tikva said the Iranian missiles had hit a residential building there, charring concrete walls, shattering windows, and ripping the walls off multiple apartments. The Israeli Magen David Adom Emergency Service reported that 2 women and 2 men, all in their 70s, and 1 other person were killed in the wave of missile attacks that struck 4 sites in central Israel. So it goes on, unfortunately, and it looks like it's not going to stop anytime soon. It's basically a daily situation right now. We're constantly firing missiles and so forth at each other. General Michael Flynn, he has said that he's against stupid wars, but not against wars entirely. And he has said that this war by Israel against Iran is not a stupid war, that this is a war that is necessary because Iran was about to develop a nuclear weapon. And so here on X, someone responding to General Flynn says, with great respect, what would you tell to people that remember hearing the same narrative about imminent nukes on the horizon since before 2003? We've heard about this before, but it turned out not to be true. And General Flynn responds as follows. Back then, Colin Powell presented a lie to the United Nations with the full weight of the DCI and CIA behind that misinformation. I don't know if you remember, but there was a meeting of the UN Security Council, right? And Powell and I have to say that I was and still am a great admirer of Colin Powell, General Colin Powell. And as a general, he was loyal, and to this day, I wonder whether he knew that what he was presenting to the United Nations Security Council was a lie. And it has been, of course, demonstrated to have been a lie. And General Flynn says here that it had the full weight of the DCI and CIA behind it. So was Powell, anyway, that's not important right now. Anyway, so that misinformation of Powell to the Security Council justifying America's attack on Iraq, that drew us into an unnecessary war in Iraq. To this day, it is impacting damn near every facet of our lives here at home. A disastrous decision. In this case, once you achieve 3% uranium enrichment, you can move to 90% rapidly. Iran did just that. All then that is required is to marry up the NUC warhead or the nuke warhead with a ballistic propulsion system, and you have a nuclear missile. Some will say it requires testing, etc. None of that would happen under the psychos who are running Iran. And once they claim to have a nuke, the world changes again. What this means for America is we have a major decision to make. At what point does America stop kowtowing to the regional players across the entire Middle East, not just Israel? America must restart everything that we have in abundance inside of our own nation. DJT has to re-energize every single sector of America: energy, manufacturing, robotics, medical, health, farming, mining, etc., etc. No perfect answers or solutions, but the world cannot afford to allow psychotics who call for the annihilation of an entire culture possess nuclear weapons. I understand where he's coming from, but this last part where he says Trump has to re-energize every single sector of America: energy, manufacturing, robotics, medical, health, farming, mining, et cetera, et cetera. That right now, that seems like a pretty tall order. Not that, it's impossible. And America has certainly come back before. And one thing about America is that because of our freedom, uh, we have probably more sort of a creativity going on than any other country in the world. We're far beyond Europe, or certainly beyond China, Soviet Union, or Russia, Japan, Korea. Uh, we started the internet. Uh, well, we actually started. We actually invented semiconductors, although that sort of went to Japan. But this is the issue: we invent stuff, and then someone else takes it over. Semiconductors is a very good example of that. Um, it is possible for America over time, not just Trump, but over time, to re-energize all these sectors that he's mentioning: energy, manufacturing, robotics, medical, health, farming, mining, et cetera, et cetera. But it's a pretty tall order. And right now, I think it would be very, very difficult for that to happen, especially when you have uh, groups of people who are doing everything they can to bring America down and to attack America's systems and institutions. Um, uh, if the CCP were to fall, then I think it would be much easier to accomplish these things. Right? If China were to not be ruled by the Communist Party, but by a more what word shall I use? Benign, or at least not non-belligerent party, that would be great. We still have Jeffrey Sachs going around saying, "Oh no, the only reason that people in Washington hate China, hate Russia, is because they are big. That's the only reason." But uh, I'd really like to take a look at Jeffrey Sachs' bank account. I mean, who's paying him to say this kind of ridiculous stuff? He's pretty smart in other situations, but definitely regarding the Chinese Communist Party, he's not, and he's going around basically spouting kind of Chinese propaganda right now. Too bad. I respected him in many other areas, but certainly right now he's really um doing America a great disservice. All right, let's see here. Now, um, okay, meanwhile, there is this sort of mysterious cargo plane that traveled from China to Iran and turned off its transponder, which is very serious and very strange thing to happen. A major global twist has shaken the already tense conflict between Israel and Iran. According to startling reports, China may have quietly entered the war zone, sending a cargo plane to Tehran in what many are calling a direct and dangerous challenge to both the United States and Israel. I can see why China would not want Tehran to lose this war. Tehran and China have been close for many years, and until fairly recently, China was Iran's only ally, really. I think now Russia has sort of joined also because of they need the cheap energy from Iran. But there's been a close relationship between Iran and China for many years. And if Iran were to lose the war, as it looks like they will, China would lose an important partner in the Middle East. So I can see how they might be doing stuff to help Iran. The suspicious part, the Chinese plane turned off its transponder, the electronic device that helps air traffic controllers track aircraft in the sky. When a plane disables this system, it becomes nearly invisible to radar. This secretive act has raised serious eyebrows, especially when paired with long-standing suspicions that China could be supplying weapons to Iran behind the scenes. And listen, China has got a lot of nuclear missiles, right? Not nearly as many as America, not nearly as many as Russia, but certainly a whole lot more than Israel. So it's not impossible that China would supply something of a nuclear nature to Iran. I could see that if things really got bad for Iran. Experts believe this isn't just another routine flight. It signals a covert military operation that could include banned equipment, advanced weapon systems, or critical supplies meant to fuel Iran's ongoing defense against Israeli strikes. The incident has rattled diplomatic circles and sent strong ripples through the intelligence community. Turning off the transponder is considered a major red flag in aviation, usually associated with military missions, espionage, or unauthorized cargo delivery. In war-sensitive regions like the Middle East, such actions only add to the fear of global escalation. For years, China and Iran have built a tight strategic relationship, often rooted in military cooperation, oil trade, and a shared opposition to Western influence. From joint naval drills to technology transfers, their ties have been strengthening quietly, but this latest move brings their alliance into the spotlight like never before. The Chinese government has not officially confirmed any military delivery, but Chinese Foreign Ministry spokespeople have made their position clear. They support Iran's sovereignty and oppose foreign interference. This comes after after China sharply criticized Israel's military actions inside Iran during Operation Rising Lion. In a strong diplomatic message, China warned that the attacks could lead to serious consequences and insisted that all nations must respect Iran's territorial integrity. Beijing also emphasized the need for peace and stability, yet its actions, like secretly sending a cargo plane, tell a different story. Some experts argue that China is using this opportunity to test U.S. reactions, knowing well that America has been closely backing Israel in the conflict. By supporting Iran quietly, China may be trying to expand its influence in the Middle East while undermining U.S. dominance in the region. Well, I would say not trying to expand its influence, but kind of shoring up or defending the influence that it has right now. Because if there is a regime change in Iran, right, much more, let's say, democratic regime change in Iran, then China may lose a partner in the Middle East. The secret Chinese plane to Tehran couldn't have come at a more critical time. The United States had already issued stern warnings to Iran with threats of military retaliation if the conflict escalated further. Now, with China entering the picture, the stakes have multiplied. The move is being seen as a clear provocation. China, without directly declaring war on or military support, may have used this flight to signal power and presence. And since it avoided detection by turning off key tracking systems, it shows just how advanced and daring China's operations have become. While officials in Washington and Jerusalem remain tight-lipped, analysts are sounding alarms over the growing risk of a broader regional war. If China is found to be supplying missiles, drones, or cyber warfare equipment, this could trigger sanctions, counterstrikes, or diplomatic clashes on a global scale. Meanwhile, ordinary citizens across the Middle East and even in parts of Europe and Asia fear that the war may no longer remain just between Iran and Israel. With China's stealth involvement, this could spiral into a larger power conflict between East and West. What began as a localized confrontation could now be on the brink of something far more dangerous, a global tug of war for control, influence, and power. The event has escalated the tension in the region beyond all expectations. As more details emerge about the cargo plane, the world watches nervously. Will this secret mission lead to open confrontation, or was it just a high-stakes message to Washington and Tel Aviv? Only time will tell, but one thing is certain. The war is no longer just about Iran and Israel. It's now about who controls the world's next big battlefield. So things are developing and potentially, right? We don't know for sure yet. Remember what I've said before, sex sells, but fear sells almost as well. And so, people who are trying to sell articles, trying to sell clicks, trying to gain viewers, they will often try to put fear into our hearts so as to accomplish their financial goals. But this, I think, does point out some interesting and potentially serious situations. But we'll see. We'll see what happens with this. We'll have to follow this situation as things develop. Okay, and we'll see whether they do develop. So it's going to be an interesting summer, to say the least. Domestically, around the United States, I suppose these No Kings demonstrations may attempt to continue, although I think President Trump is dealing with this situation firmly and successfully. But if more people are killed, then the emotions may run higher and higher. And when that happens, there will be even more social unrest and so forth. And meanwhile, then we have this situation between Iran and Israel, and we have to see how that is going to develop. Right now, if things are getting out of control in the world, you would expect the markets to be reacting sensitively, and I don't really see that happening. Right, no, I don't at all. In fact, the markets are up right now. Let me just show you. Of course, we're hours yet from the opening of the markets, but I'm talking about the futures, and we see that at least right now, the S&P, Dow, Nasdaq, they're all up pretty well. A fairly good chunk of change right now. Let's see what's going on with the dollar. Dollar's down. Earlier it was below 98, but it's back up above 98 now. And let's see, also Bitcoin is up as well, 1.25% to 106,000. Gold is down actually. Okay, so it seems at least right now that the markets are not really taking this situation too seriously. You see, oil is also down more than 1%. Both the West Texas Intermediate and the Brent both are down more than 1%. So from that, and I look at the markets because these are actual people taking money, not necessarily their own money, they're taking actual money and putting it with places. So they're not just expressing their opinions while they sit behind a computer. I mean, I can sit here and say anything I want. And if I'm wrong, it's not really going to affect me all that much. But these people, when they're putting money down, if they're wrong, they lose money. And so they do a lot of research and so forth and so on. Although they're not necessarily all that wise, I find, but still, it's better than someone just sort of talking off the top of their head. And right now, they're not too concerned about what's going on between Iran and Israel. They're not too concerned about this mysterious plane, I guess. What we see right now is that President Trump has gone to Canada, to Alberta, I think, to participate in the G7 meeting. So U.S., Canada, Japan, UK, France, Germany, Italy, and then the Iran-Israel situation, of course, is going to be discussed there as well. And not just those 7 countries, but a whole lot of other countries are sending their presidents or heads of government. Korea, the president of Korea, the new president of Korea is going to be there, and also Japan's Prime Minister Ishiba is going to be there, a whole lot of others. So it's kind of a big sort of meeting of major leaders around the world. Well, interesting to see, we'll be watching to see whether anything comes out of that. But markets, I think, are looking at that as well and thinking that, well, maybe this thing can be resolved fairly quickly without too much damage to the world economy. Of course, the main concern that oil traders and other people who are involved in the economy have is the possibility that Iran will close the Strait of Hormuz. And about 20% of the world's oil consumption moves by tanker through the Strait of Hormuz. And if Iran were to take that step, that would be a pretty devastating situation for the world economy. But I guess people are feeling fairly good that that's not going to happen right now. So we'll have to wait and see. But things can change very quickly. So we need to continue to watch this situation. Okay. All right. Let's see here. All right. Let's okay. And Fox is filled with this kind of stuff we've already covered. Let's take a look at Newsmax. And Newsmax also, photographs from war zones, they sell pretty well. They're pretty good at attracting clicks and so forth. And so you're going to see a lot of that kind of stuff. Israel claims air superiority over Tehran. I think that's probably true. Oil dips with Middle East central banks in focus. Okay, oil dips and the price is down. Okay. And Israel condemns walls around its Paris Air Show pavilions. All right. Russia ready to mediate on Iran, accepts Tehran's uranium. Right. So Russia is definitely on Iran's side. So I don't know if they're really in a position to mediate. Did you see where Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, said, "Oh, I think because America now is kind of the bad guy in the world, China may have the moral authority to mediate this situation." Spoken like a true Democrat, right? China. No, I don't think so. Okay. All right. Iranian naval commander, we've revealed only a fraction of our capabilities. Okay, well, you got to say that. And all right, Trump said no on the plan to kill the head guy in Iran. And always you want to keep the head guy alive because you need someone to negotiate with. And that's also the same reason that during World War II, the United States did not bomb the Imperial Palace in Tokyo. And let's see here. White House official, Trump is going to meet with the Ukrainian and Mexican presidents at the G7. And Trump warns Iran, make Middle East great again. Okay. Right. And Trump says Iran will be destroyed if U.S. is attacked. Let's hope that that does not happen, but it could. And Iran could outsource such an attack to another country or to a terrorist organization. So that's why let's stay away from crowds. Let's be careful. Be careful out there. And Dems calling on GOP to bolster personal security, military rare earth issues unresolved in trade talks. Okay. All right. And so Medicaid data is being used in migrant crackdown. Okay. David Friedman, Iran is in a death spiral. And this is actually dangerous. We know, they may get desperate and do something really terrible. Iran is in a death spiral after Israel's brutal attacks, and even though it's pushing back and causing some damage, it has no hope other than to surrender, a former U.S. ambassador to Israel, David Friedman, told Newsmax Sunday. Well, he could be right. And there's one report by the Times of London, by the way, that some of the senior leaders of Iran may have escaped to Moscow so as to survive the war. I have not seen any concrete evidence to that effect, and I've not seen that report anyplace else, but it is possible that that is what's happening there. Every day it's getting worse and worse for them, Friedman said on Newsmax's Sunday report. The ratio of damage in Iran versus Israel is probably 100 to 1. He acknowledged that it is difficult to watch Israeli apartment buildings being destroyed and people being killed, but said Israel is withstanding Iran's attacks. And I think I've seen the report that the Iron Dome right now is about 90% effective, which is less than in previous attacks because of the number of missiles being fired, and also, I guess, the number of missiles that Israel has available to go up and shoot those missiles and drones down. Israel is not hermetically sealed, said Friedman. No country is hermetically sealed, but by and large, Israel is withstanding the assault by Iran, and Iran, every day, they come closer to the end of that regime. This leaves no hope for Iran other than to surrender, give up its nukes, give up its ballistic missile program, and try to pursue peace, he added. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump recognizes that Israel, by carrying out attacks on Iran to prevent it from getting nuclear weapons, is carrying the interests of the entire world on its shoulders, he said. A nuclear Iran is a threat to the entire world, said Friedman. The entire world is in range. A hypersonic missile from Iran to the East Coast is maybe half an hour away. I mean, this is not Israel against Iran. This is the free world against radical Islamic terror. Israel may end up needing some help, but for now, Trump has played this exactly right, said Friedman. He has retained the ability of the United States to mediate a dispute, which I think he very much wants to do. But at the end of the day, when that dispute is mediated, it will be in the context of a defanged, declawed, no longer nuclear Iran. And that makes all the difference in the world. And the entire world should be thanking Israel for its courageous and frankly extraordinary, unprecedented military success. Iran's Ayatollah, meanwhile, only has words left as weapons, said Friedman. The words are harsh. He said they've always been harsh, but the Iranian skies are wide open. I mean, there's absolutely nothing that Iran has to impede the Israeli Air Force. Meanwhile, the growing attacks on Iran are an advancement of the cause of peace, said Friedman. Peace through strength means that we exercise our strength to bring about a more peaceful world, he said. There cannot be peace in Iran if Iran has nuclear weapon. It's simply a binary challenge. Iran with a nuclear weapon is antithetical to peace. Trump recognizes that, and he recognized that in his first term. I think this is entirely consistent with the president's promises to the American people during his campaign. As I read that, I'm thinking of North Korea. What are the people in North Korea, the leaders in North Korea, Kim Jong-un and his circle, as they watch this unfold, as they watch almost a nuclear power being cut down to size? What do they think? What lessons are they learning from this in terms of their own situation? Right? Are they saying, "Wow, we sure are lucky. At least we got to the point where we have nuclear weapons. Iran didn't get to that point. That's why they're suffering and the way they're suffering." Is that the way they're looking at this? Quite possibly, I think that is the case. North Korea believes, rightly or wrongly, that they believe this way. It says, listen, we've got nuclear weapons. We've shown the world that we have nuclear weapons. And so therefore, no one dares to touch us. No one dares to attack us. And we are safe. As long as we keep our nuclear weapons, we are safe. Our sovereignty is secure. Our regime is secure. This appears to be the way that the North Koreans think. So perhaps this situation is sort of confirming that for them. Perhaps. Yeah. But also, on the other hand, they see how Israel is able to really bombard Iran and bombard its nuclear facilities and missile stockpiles and so forth. And think, wow, what would happen if someone were to do that to us? Who would do that? We don't have an Israel in Asia, right? If anyone in Asia is going to attack North Korea, it would have to be the United States directly. Japan's not going to attack. South Korea's not going to attack, especially under the current administration. Current administration probably help defend North Korea. I'm not joking. Yeah. Who would attack North Korea if, in a similar situation? The attack would have to come from America. All right. Well, we don't want to think about that too much. Okay. All right. Let's see here. Yes, but maybe also for North Korea, I hope that they're seeing that, if they attack America, or if they attack American interests such as Guam or Okinawa, or even the bases in South Korea, then what's happening in Iran will happen to them, or even worse, will happen to them. I hope that's a lesson that North Korea is learning from this. Okay, so let's see here. What else have we got on Newsmax? Okay. Okay. All right. Toxic environment led to Minnesota shootings. Okay. Yeah. Toxic environment. And interesting sort of turn of events on the deportations that happened during the weekend. President Trump said, okay, we're not going to deport people who are farm workers or hospitality workers, in other words, hotel workers. And apparently these two industries really made a very strong lobbying effort to the president that they need to keep their workers. One thing that's interesting, and this is a sort of another example of the wrong-headed Democrat thinking. The LA mayor said, the United States economy needs immigrants. Yes, but do they have to be illegal immigrants? Well, answer is yes, because illegal immigrants can be paid less than minimum wage. So yes, yes. Yes, they do need to be illegal, right? So that they can be exploited. Because if they're legal immigrants, they can't be exploited in that way. So that's the Democrat talking point right now. Okay, here we go. Caring about Trump doesn't understand our economy cannot function without immigrant labor. Yes, that's true. That's true. But we have plenty of legal immigrant labor. It doesn't have to be illegal immigrant labor, right? Host of Dana Bash, this is a MSNBC, CNN, I'm saying CNN. Officials say more than 20,000 demonstrators took to the streets in LA yesterday as part of the nationwide No Kings protests, which were largely peaceful. There was a pocket of unrest outside the federal building. How violent did things go in reality last night in your town? All right, so, okay, but so then she jumps the figure up to 30,000, not 20,000, and so forth and so on. Okay. I don't think the president understands that we have entire sectors of our economy that cannot function without immigrant labor. Yes. It has to be illegal immigrant labor because that's the only way that we can exploit these people, by paying them less than minimum wage. That's the way that Democrats are thinking anyway. All right, let's see here. Rand Paul, not a big fan of Trump's military parade glorifying weapons. I think, I didn't actually see the parade, but I think the general idea of a parade, by the way, I think President Trump got this during his first term when he visited Paris and during Bastille Day, and saw the French military doing a parade to commemorate Bastille Day. And he saw that, he says, wow, that's a really nice thing. Let's have that in America. In America, parades are more like, the Rose Bowl parade, the Macy's Thanksgiving parade, right? Those are the kinds of parades that Americans sort of gravitate to. uh, I think the French spirit is very much different from America. I don't know if really military parades, how they really fit with the American, especially now in the 21st century. I think, and if first half of the 20th century, all right, I'm sure there were a lot of parades, military parades, and I'm sure they worked very well. But right now, America has become very, very soft and non-martial, shall we say, non-martial. So maybe there has to be kind of a return of the martial spirit, the martial culture generally, before we can have a really honest to goodness parade that goes more than 8 blocks down Constitution Avenue. Anyway, we'll see. That's not an important point. All right, gotta go. I'll see you tomorrow. God bless, Godspeed.